Welcome to Pier-Glass Poetry Spotlight number 5, where we will visit one poem and its author. I'm Stan Galloway, your host, and today we're very pleased to look at Urban Love at the Laundromat with Leonard Tshitenge. It's good to be with you today.
Likewise. Thank you, Stan. I appreciate it.
Originally from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Leonard comes to us today from Boston, where he lives with his family. He's the author of Afro Blues by Way of Congo, which came out in 2020. Leonard, would you begin by reading the poem for us?
Sure. Woman, your smile has been disturbing the peace of my sleep. So I want to know if I fit your dream, because I am thirsty for your being. I want to taste the essence of the universe. I want to make love to your soul, caress your mind, and see if maybe I qualify. But when we exchange phone numbers and I call, your voicemail said, "This is the rejection hotline. Don't feel offended, but the person that gave you this number thought you were ugly. Click." And my reaction was, damn, what game are you playing? I thought our conversation had meaning. Wait a minute. Is this about past relationships? Because when I met you at the laundromat, the beat of our music was right. And I want to make it last, as long as we are honest with our spirits. Because believe me, this is more than kissing horizontally. I want to caress your emotions like a jazz harmony. And rather than deal with society, I instead rather bathe your soul to wash away any insecurities. Somebody call law and order, because I just want to be a special victim. See, you got me talking all funny, but your smile has been disturbing the peace of my sleep. So I want to know if I fit your dream, because I am thirsty for your being. I want to taste the essence of your universe. I want to make love to your soul, caress your mind, and start a revolution with your body to see if maybe I qualify. I want to experience realness, something like urban love.
Thank you so much, Leonard.
You're welcome.
One of the first things I noticed in this poem is the weaving together of something very serious with something that's still rather lighthearted. And that's one of the consistent traits that I find in your work. Is that balance something that you consciously work at, or does that come without effort?
Great question. It's something that I'm conscious work at, because I'm very intentional to provide a balance between pain and humor. And I think within the poem, there's some pain there. The approach, but then the step back from the woman, there's a pain somewhere. So I'm always intentional to incorporate humor and pain, just to kind of provide that balance. As a human being, we do experience a lot of pain, but how do we laugh about? How do we laugh in the midst of all? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes good sense. I think everyone responds to a love poem. And so I'm so glad that we picked this particular one for today. Love is part of that universal human condition. And failed love is probably written about in more detail than successful love has ever been. In your work with mental health, how important is it for people to deal with failed relationships, and how does poetry enter into that?
Yeah, great question. Because first, anytime you experience failed relationship, it's good to pause and reflect. You have to go through a healing process. I think the question is, how do you manage your emotion within that process, right? What does it look like for you? Because, failed relationship or divorce, it's just part of the human condition. So I think as a human being, the question is, it's okay to pause and to reflect. And then the other question is, what are some of the tools that can help you reflect? The most important, heal. That's where poetry comes in. The concept of introducing, I think for me, creative writing and expressive writing, creative writing tied into mental health. So art is just one of the two. Of course, arts help us connect with poetry. Essentially, then you can use poetry as a way to heal, just to manage your stress, and it becomes very therapeutic, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's where it comes in. The intersection between poetry and healing. It's important. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that poetry is not, it is an art, but it is a tool as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The refrain, which is repeated at the end of the poem, identifies love on an existential plane rather than a physical one, which is implied, in that comparison. In what ways does the poem argue for assessing love at a more than physical level?
I'm glad you asked that. You caught that, and I think there's a line in the poem where I said, "This is more than kissing horizontally." So, in other words, I'm just trying to introduce the concept of let me get to know you first, before we get to baking cookies. In other words, I think the concept of make love to your mind and to your soul. All I simply say, getting to know somebody, and I think it's more appealing that way. That it's not just about let me get in your pan on both sides. So it's good to. That's why the key phrase is it's more than kissing horizontally. I want to make love to your mind, to your soul. Yeah, I think we can do better as human beings, trying to connect on a more higher level. Get to know somebody's mind and soul. And if we want to dive in deeper, we all human beings. We all sexual beings. It's a reality. It's not like it's a bad thing. But how about we kind of have conversation? Get to know each other first and go from there. Yeah, if that makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and seeing it here, it's not overbearing in the poem, but it is really, I think, the foundation of the poem is saying, this is not just about the physical.
Yeah.
So finally, I wonder if there's some specific elements of urban love that don't exist in, say, rural love. What effect, what makes this an urban poem, as the title suggests?
Great question. I think it speaks of the environment. I wrote that poem when I'm still living in an urban city, urban area. Sort of like, what was that? Teenage or young adult engagement in those type of environment. Typically in the urban inner city, there's so many engagement when it comes to love. People like to flirt. People like to. I'm not trying to generalize it, but I think the environment speak to it. I think the Laundromat back then was somewhere in the metropolitan Boston. I forgot urban setting, so this urban love. But yeah, it could be rural love too, in a rural setting. I don't know if different settings speak of different situation, but I think at that time I just wanted to bring the setting attached to the poem. Yeah.
Well, and I like that because it seems like, at least in my reading habits, I come across more nature poems, which don't look at how that gets complicated, in asphalt and concrete. And I think that this poem does some of that complication. You're not going to meet, out in a field somewhere, because you've only got a 12 by 16 room with 14 washing machines in it.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's a weekend. People are just watching their clothes, and what did that setting look like? A lot of things happen. And I think it speaks also to there's also external factors, circumstances that can impact the quality of your love, that can impact how you engage. The Laundromat setting was kind of perfect. A lot of commotions happened. So, and it's based on a true story of the poem. I think I got her with a good line when she was laughing, but then after that, she told me she broke up with a boyfriend, but I was kind of hurt, but I just reflected and wrote it. Yeah.
Well, and it just occurs to me that if you're sitting there watching your laundry go around and around in circles, in essence, that's what this poem does too. Is it captures that going around, that spinning, without making any progress. You're still in the same place at the end.
And then you see the picture attached with the book. Yeah, I was so intentional. Right.
Yeah, right.
It's funny. I was so intentional, and I think it went perfect. Visual.
Yeah. As always, let me end by asking, is there anything you would like to add to help us appreciate the poem more fully that maybe I've overlooked?
No, I think you dissected well. I think I just want folks to take away that it's always good to look at things from multifaceted level because there's always some underlying message there, especially internally, externally. Internally, what do I mean by just our emotion? How we engage with each other. How can we be aware of our feelings? And then the external part comes just the setting, the environment. I think it's a poem that can be dissected in so many ways. And the message is an example that can bring humor and pain, which is the theme across so many of my poetry. And I think my expertise in really using spoken word to help people digest a tough topic, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, you got it. So I hope folks can appreciate it. Thank you for the support. You're such a great person, great team, Stan. I cannot thank you enough.
Well, thank you, Leonard, for joining us today. It's a pleasure working with you again. Leonard is completing his doctoral studies in leadership psychology while maintaining an active speaking and consulting schedule. You can find him at his website, consciouslyexposed, one word, .net. For Pier-Glass Poetry, I'm Stan Galloway, wishing you a poetic day.